Riddle me this, Batman. Well, we're working on what we're going to build for the Riddler car, the MPC Californian kit, and we've done a lot of work to this. It doesn't look like it because we've made no actual progress, but we've actually done quite a bit to it just to make it fit together a little better than it was before. This insert here for the engine bay didn't quite fit perfectly. So we made that fit perfectly. And I'll show you here what we did in a second, but we had to get that front end to come down a bit more, get it out of the clouds. As a matter of fact, I don't have a before and after picture, but if I remember correctly, the video that I did before, we could see that the chassis was sticking out in a pie wedge slice, kind of sticking out down there, and recognized that there was a lot of fitment issues up inside here that we just needed to go in and correct. And we spent most of last evening while watching Quantum Leap working on that. So that was a nice time spent. So we also discovered that this wheel arch back here, or the inner wheel fender, I guess you want to call it, we had to actually, you see that little pencil line there? We had to actually grind out some of that there too, so that the interior tub could butt up against that a lot better than it was before. That was causing the whole interior tub to want to shove forward and then push the inner engine bay lining to shove forward, which was causing the car body to want to lift for some reason. So there was little lugs on the inside of here. And let's take this dude apart. So I'll show you what we did in order to get the inner engine bay to fit better. So there are little lugs that are molded on both sides here on the front, and I cut those off and then actually ended up filing down just a little bit more so that fit up better inside of the body. While we were doing all this, we were making sure that the engine and transaxle were going to fit in there just fine. So with the hood on there, jazz, so the hood actually still fits on there great, and the engine still has plenty of clearance. So feeling really good about that. Did have to do a little bit of sanding on these spots right in here because they were a little too shallow. They needed to be a little bit deeper to accommodate the front of the chassis. And speaking of the chassis, there's these lugs here. We ended up having to file these lugs down a little bit because they were a little too tall. And there was these ejector pin areas here. These are actually I take that back. They're not injector pin areas. They're actually molded on there. Look like lugs molded on there to help hold the interior part of the car at a certain height. I clipped those off, and then I'm in the process of filing down smooth again so that this will all be flat. And the interior tub likes that a lot better because if you look at the bottom of the interior tub, that is just one flat surface, and this doesn't like that. So yeah, we've been making this a lot more friendly to the interior tub, and you can see how we had to flatten that leading edge out there on both sides just a little bit so that, let's pull this guy out. Come here. There we go. So that the seat back here would fit up in there a lot smoother. So not 100% perfect. It's getting the job done. But let's turn this right way around. There we go. That side looks a lot better. I got that one spot on. So there is a little bit of movement back and forth just depending on how the body wants to fit onto the chassis. Let's see here. When we were at the Model Car Mafia meeting on Saturday, our buddy Marty had brought his Mannix version of this kit. It's a very cool model. Turns out the Mannix chassis is the same all the way up until here, right here at the rear axle. This chassis happens to be shortened by quite a bit in order to accommodate the rear end of this car that kind of tucks underneath. And the Mannix car actually has another, I want to say almost a half an inch of chassis. But because of the way this one's styled, they cut this short. So it's interesting that this is the exact same chassis for the Mannix and probably any other Tornado kit they would have produced up until the rear axle, and then they shortened the exhaust, and the gas tank is like half of what it should be. So He's like, you're not going to go anywhere with the size of that fuel tank. I'm like, oh, it's standing on edge. That's how you're seeing it. You can't see it in the trunk. It's actually standing on edge. He didn't believe me, but I'm still sticking with that story. But yeah, the chassis doing pretty good. Everybody's fitting on here just fine. We are still going to have to raise up the front suspension, and we're going to do the technique where we're going to lengthen that hole, kind of drive it farther up by doing some filing on that, and then see if we can get most of the way there. But the modifications we made to the engine bay tub and the chassis and a little bit of the body also, we had to, let's see here, we had to file and sand this piece here back a bit so that the engine bay tub could come up higher. This lip here could come up higher. So all those modifications have helped that front end of the car come down lower. We still have clearance for the engine, so we're good there. And now we can move on with getting some paint on things, I think. And I'm of the mind that I have that backwards. There we go. I am of the mind that I'm going to go ahead and like glue this on place because I can. So get this all lined up the way we want it, glue it in place and see how it fits. And then we can just drop the engine and we don't have to slide a transmission underneath the car because it doesn't need that. It's got transaxle. And we can get that in place, and then we can start drilling the hole for the front axle, which was, again, awesome suggestions by you guys. I'd love it. Thank you so much for all that support and that help. That really, this is what makes doing stuff on YouTube so special. So thank you guys. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. Everything looks like it's doing okay. I think I mentioned that we went with a different wheel and tire combination, and our buddy Chris came through with the question mark prints from his 3D printer. Look at that. That's going to be minus the blue tack, of course, but that's going to be the center spinners on each wheel, and then we also going to have one for the shifter inside as opposed to the external shifter. It's going to go up in there. So yeah, we're pretty excited about the whole thing, and we're going to be getting on here, but we're going to have to stop pretty soon because we're going to leave for Acme in just a few days. So yeah, I'm trying to get as much done as we can before we have to leave town. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in again and sticking with us, and we will talk to you all in the next one. Bye now. Oh, I hope I didn't get copyright strike for that.